Let me extend a pleasant and a very good Tuesday morning to you, members of the media, and thank you for coming to cover this a little bit more than brief, but this very important statement that the OWTO feels we should inform the public about at this time. So thank you very much and welcome to the headquarters of the Oilfields Workers Trade. I want to start by saying that when the statement is made that the refinery and the assets that surround it at Point-a-Pierre belongs to the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago, that statement is true. It belongs to all of the people, all of the taxpayers. Indeed, it belongs to our children and those who will make up the future of this country, because that asset belongs to Trinidad and Tobago. But I also want to say that those who are in government has a responsibility to not just conveniently say that the refinery is the asset of Trinidad and Tobago and the people and the taxpayers, but the diplomatic center is also the assets of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the taxpayers. So when someone gets up and starts to rant and rave as though he forgot to take his tablets, when he starts to go as though he's spinning out of control, I want to remind him through you, the media, that the diplomatic center, the office of the Prime Minister, those assets belong to the people, and I will tell you why in an explanation in just a bit. All of those assets and the government of which he is Prime Minister is accountable to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the taxpayers. Because we, the taxpayers, pay them, and we often forget that we employ them. We are the employers, and I want us in the coming weeks, months, as we head into this general election, to remember that as a people. The people of Trinidad and Tobago employ the government. We employ the government to improve the quality of our lives and standard of living and to protect us and to ensure that we are safe and secure. That's the basic responsibility. But everything that was done from since they got that job to present is the opposite. They have not protected the lives of the people. They have not improved the quality of lives of the people. They have not ensured. They have not ensured that we are safe in our homes. All of those things, they have failed. So generally, they have failed on the job that they're supposed to do. Now, now, what we have here in Trinidad and Tobago is madness and chaos, and people just spinning out of control. But unfortunately, what we also have is a people who either forget or people who just allow themselves to be fooled, and some people just support the nonsense with the highest level of hypocrisy that has ever visited our land. Hypocrisy, and remember that word. Why am I saying all of this ahead of my presentation this morning? I'm saying this because my takeoff this morning is on an article that was captured on Saturday in one of the newspapers, and I'm not going to say it because I'm not advertising any particular newspaper this morning, but it was captured, you do your research, it was captured on Saturday, June the 22nd, an article. And the article is headlined, "Government Pressing Ahead with Refinery Sale." And a sub-headline that says, "Young says interested industrialist is a very successful businessman." In that article, you also saw as if it's in the face of everybody. You also saw a smiling Keith Christopher Rowley, our country's Prime Minister, holding hand or shaking hand with the businessman in the diplomatic center. And I'll come back to that in a while. In the diplomatic center, it's not Rowley's diplomatic center. You want another shot? Take it. It's not in Rowley's diplomatic center or P&M diplomatic center, in the diplomatic center owned by the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the taxpayers. So when he talks about the taxpayers, let us examine what the taxpayers is getting. And I want to quote from that article a bit. And it starts, the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries yesterday described Indian industrialist Navid Jindal, who has expressed interest in the oil refinery at Point-à-Pierre, as a very successful businessman, even though the billionaire is currently before an Indian court on corruption allegations. Very successful, the quote, very successful businessman, even though the billionaire is currently before an Indian court on corruption allegation. And it went on. Stuart Young added that those charges were from a very long time ago. The article continues. On Monday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley met with Jindal, the chairman of Jindal Steel and Power Limited, at the Diplomatic Center in St. Anne's. According to the Office of the Prime Minister, quote, Mr. Jindal is interested in the potential of the Point-à-Pierre refinery, end of quote. And that interest formed part of the discussions with the Prime Minister. Let's just pause right there for a while. According to the Office of the Prime Minister, this is a quote coming from official release from that office, quote, Mr. Jindal is interested in the potential of the Petrotrin refinery, end of quote. And that interest formed part of the discussion with the Prime Minister. Let's stop right there. I'll come back to Mr. Jindal and this controversy and chaos and scandal that surrounds him in a little while. Did we not pass procurement legislation last year in our parliament? After much pressing for it, the trade union movement and so on, and the Contractors Association and all interested law-abiding citizens, did we not press for and finally got procurement legislation? You tell me this morning, what part of that legislation allows or requires the Prime Minister to meet with an interested party in purchasing an asset of the state before anything else happens? But that's not all. The sale of the Point-à-Pierre refinery is now involved in a process, a bidding process, non-binding bidding process. And that process has some 8 interested parties who would have provided or supplied the requirements to the one that has undertaken the responsibility for that process, and that is Scotiabank International. So Scotiabank International has been given, quote unquote, as an independent body, given the responsibility to go through and to select the bid and put that bid before the cabinet, the most successful bid. And I tell you, I can't speak on behalf of the rest of them, but I can tell you, in the past, let me remind the country that we would have won that bid against some 76 other international contenders, because we would have supplied, responded to, and given them all of the requirements. And I can also tell you that every single requirement, every single request, every single thing they requested in this current process, we have provided that. So we're in the game. We are in a process that is engaged right now. supplying all of the requirements. But I want to tell you that that bidding process was closed on May 10th. Let me say that again. The process that is currently engaged to select a purchaser for those assets has been closed on May 10th. May 10th, 2024. That's last May. Ups come this last week, Indian businessman in the diplomatic center, in the face of procurement legislation, in the face of the procedure and the process that is being engaged, up comes Indian businessman in a display of supreme bias discussing the same asset with the Prime Minister. Now, Trinidad and Tobago, that could never, ever be correct or right. That could not be ethically correct, morally correct, spiritually correct, and it definitely not lawfully correct and right. And that those people, the hypocrites in the PNM now and the sycophants, they would have been making heavy weather out of that with another government, another prime minister doing that. Let's be real. They would have been raising issues, but everybody is silent in the face of the flouting of a process where a prime minister believed that the refinery is his. I want to tell him this morning, and don't be afraid to clap, comrades, because you don't be afraid of Rowley. Rowley is a bully, but the OWT is not afraid of anybody. So don't be afraid to be caught clapping against the bully. He's Rowley, as far as we see, understand, and know. He tries to bully everybody and get everybody afraid. But I want to say this morning, before we go any further, we have never been afraid of the colonial masters in this country. We have never been afraid of Dr. Eric William. We have never been afraid of Ian Robinson. We have never been afraid of Patrick Manning, God rest his soul. We have never been afraid of Basdeo Pandey. We have never been afraid of Kamla Prasad Bisesa. So who the hell is history for Rowley? We are not afraid of him at all. So don't threaten us. Don't try to frighten us or threaten us. We are not afraid of you. And in any case, my advice is for you to make sure before you leave home, take your medicine. Yeah? So, back to this business here of the procurement legislation. So we have had procurement legislation. We have involved in a process. Other contenders are involved in this process. Process closed May 10th. No extension, but here now you have Prime Minister saying, when they would have said that at the end of June, they would announce who are the successful one, who are the successful bidder in the process. You have arbitrarily extending the process to the end of August as an announcement coming from this man who speaks about the taxpayers and the taxpayers and the taxpayers, as if the taxpayers are some people sitting in a pavilion looking on. The taxpayers are we, the workers, the people of this country, all of us who that asset belong to. And we will not sit idly by. This is a scandal in the making. This is a scandal in the making where the Prime Minister could just get up and announce that he changed the date, change the rules of the game, engage a businessman, display extreme bias, because nobody else was invited to the diplomatic center to talk about the process and to talk about the refinery. This person has. Well, let us just examine this person that has been entertained in our diplomatic center. Trinidad and Tobago, the people, the man in the street, all of us, the taxpayers. Let us examine who the Prime Minister entertained in the diplomatic center. And I want to ask the question this morning. According to the Forbes, it says Navid, Jindal, in trouble again. Forbes talk about Navid Jindal accused of graft. Yeah. And then we have not just Forbes, we have Business Today India, Business Standard India, all of these are Indian newspapers. Hindustan Times, yeah, and Live Mint website. I think I may need a clothesline to hang up all of these articles and headlines for you here this morning. And it talks about this person, Navid Jindal, and four others cheating with cheating and criminal conspiracy. Serious thing here, criminal conspiracy, bribery, and it talks about the court orders framing of additional charges against Navid Jindal. Okay? So, except we may have missed something, that person who comes from another time zone across the world comes to our shores, gets this special treatment because we were not there. I am not aware that the other contenders were there. I didn't see any picture to that effect. Special treatment from the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for some assets that are currently being engaged in a process, an official process, which process for submission of bids was closed. So we want to ask the Prime Minister, is this person involved in the process? We want to ask him what special considerations were given to this billionaire, as Stuart Young would have described. You know, it is only in Banana Republic, the likes of us here, and we are not a Banana Republic. Some of the people have Banana Republic minds. In America, this morning, in the United Kingdom, this morning, Saturday morning, the morning after this occurred, the people, the parliament would have been demanding what were the discussions that took place between the Prime Minister of the UK or the President of the United States of America. What were those discussions that took place? But mankind could come out and shake hands. But let's go further. The report that from where I'm quoting this morning. A 2013 Forbes report soon surfaced stating that Jindal was allegedly involved in a scandal called Colgate. And that's not the toothpaste, Colgate. Leading to India's federal police filing a case against Jindal Steel and Power Limited over coal mining rights. The Prime Minister has already said he was unaware of those charges. So, Trinidad and Tobago, so anything, any number could play. So you could dream, or you don't dream, you get up in the morning, you play 36, you see Rowley later in the day, or you see him before, any number could play. Because this man, this Prime Minister, said he's unaware. So what type of due diligence was done? What type of due diligence was done before you have this person at the diplomatic center? I mean, if it's your own home somewhere, that's a different thing. And everything I'm saying this morning, everybody know is right, true, and correct, you know. Everybody know that, you know. But those people, those hypocritical people, those deceitful people would have been on the radio, you could have heard them morning, noon, and night talking about how Kamala could entertain this man, or how Pandey could entertain this man, or how Robinson could entertain this man just because it's not PNM. But I want to tell you this morning that something is radically wrong, and this is a scandal of monumental proportions. It must not go by just like that, because we're going to be raising it over and over. So here's, the Prime Minister has already said that he was unaware of those charges. Following the signing of the exploration and production license at the Ministry of Energy and International Waterfront Center headquarters on Ryson Road yesterday, Young said, that little fella who gets silk and humble and feel and saying that he's humble with the silk. Humble with the silk will make him increase the charges for briefs, make him richer, but he's humble with the silk. I guess we will want all the people to be humble, so give all the people in the country silk. Yeah, because silk giving out like milk. Yeah. And then mankind would try to justify that in the sports day by talking about Attorney General for 5 years who served this country for the most duncy Attorney General we ever had in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. The most duncy Attorney General. Under him, you now have people who are what? Who are charged with murder for the first time in the history of this country. They are given bail in this seriously crime-ridden country, Trinidad and Tobago. Under him. But he gets silk. He gets silk. I guess the only thing he could do is one muscle, less brain. Full tug of war. That's the only thing that they are good for. No brain at all. But he gets silk. And mankind justifying that. Yeah? And if it was somebody else, the hypocrisy, they would have been burning up the place. They are a set of hypocrites, but they are a set of duncy hypocrites in any case. So, here's what Stuart Young say at that signing. I would imagine that that will play out as it should play out. So he's relying on the 9-day wonder of the people of this country. So the big scandal that erupted this last week at the Diplomatic Center, here's what Stuart Young, the silk man, is imagining. I would imagine that will play out as it should play out. So that people, what he means, what we understand him to mean, people go forget, and they will just drink milk, forget his silk, and forget that a businessman, a billionaire from India, in the Diplomatic Center, shaking the Prime Minister's hands, except if I am not seeing correct, and I think I am, taking out picture, smiling both of them in the Diplomatic Center, but all of these charges hang over the head of that person. And then he says he don't know, he didn't know. And then we move on to another scandal, scandal after scandal. And then he tells us, tell the country, he has been solving the problems of the country one by one. He has been creating the problems of the country 10 by 10, 10 by 10. Over and over. A scandal. Most scandalous affair. And it doesn't stop there. Stuart Young continues. And the article goes on. However, Young added, quote, from what I have seen as well, he is a successful businessman in India. One of the top businessmen, especially in the steel industry, end of quote. So if you're successful, never mind if you have procurement legislation, if you're successful as a businessman, never mind that you have charges over your head. Never mind that you have the Prime Minister shaking the hand of this man who have all of these charges. If you're successful, to them that is all that matters. So there's something has to be wrong with that. We are law-abiding citizens. We are told to drive on the correct side of the road, obey the speed limit, make sure your cars and your vehicles are well maintained. Otherwise you're going to get ticket. And then there's this thing they call demerit points. They'll squeeze blood out of stone to make sure that you pay all of these taxes and so on. We are tax-paying people. We are law-abiding. But here comes a member of the cabinet, the silk man, telling the country that, well, he's a successful businessman.
need procurement legislation.
Yeah. So, what does that mean? We don't need procurement legislation. We don't even need the process. Yeah? And then we can extend it to August and so on. So anything goes once it's them doing it. Anything goes once it's P&M doing it. But for us in the OWTU, anything must not go, no matter who. And that is why we continue to fall out with everybody, because we stand for truth and justice for the people. That's why we will make enemies for the right thing. We will stand in the gateway, in the doorway of justice, ensuring that the people get value. That's what we are about. And so we raise this issue as the first step. There are a number of steps that we are going to be taking, the liberty of which I don't have this morning to announce it. But this issue must not rest at all, at all, at all. They would like it to die. You hear what Young said? I would imagine that it would play out. Well, there's some things that is going to play out with respect to them and the government not too long from now. So here's what, Trinidad and Tobago, here's what. So, on Labor Day, I raised a number of critical issues, life and death issues, issues affecting the livelihood and the lives of the people of this country. But not one word, or not one response, an iota of a response coming from the Prime Minister on those critical issues that was raised on behalf of the people on Labor Day. Not one. All of those armchair bourgeois commentators and so on, who produce nothing, who don't know from A to Z about working in any industry, whether it's land, or whether it's refinery, or whether it's offshore, or whether it is daily rated work, or whether it is whatever the nature of the work, they produce absolutely nothing. But they prop themselves up with the notion that what they say, they give expert advice and so on. So you have one Mariano Brown who epitomizes this armchair bourgeois know-it-all and knows absolutely nothing about anything that is real at all, commenting about trade unionists. Trade unions need to know, decide whether they're going in politics or whether they're going in trade union, in trade union representation and so on. I want to inform that person, that bourgeois commentator, that trade union, if you go back and you just check the history, in this country itself, trade unions, the OWTU, Tuba, Uriah, Buzz, Butler, were very much in politics and the trade union movement. And for as long as it requires us, because it requires both the trade union representation and involvement in the politics to decide and to determine and to defeat the type of politics and their policies that affects the trade union representation. As long as that continues, we will continue to be in the politics and representing workers. In fact, you can only get effective representation of our members when we are involved in the politics that guides all of the policies that protects the workers and so on. So, on that point, before I depart that point, I just want to educate and to remind them. You see, what they do, they pray, attack on an uninformed public, a forgetful public, a public that does not really do any research, a public that generally goes after headlines and so on. So you see on the newspaper one headline in the front, on the front page, and inside the story going the opposite way. So they go with the headline and nobody takes time to really get into even the article. But more precisely, these people, these bourgeois commentators, prey on the uninformed public. I want to remind Trinidad and Tobago, as it is our duty to remind Trinidad and Tobago and the world, that trade unions throughout the world support political parties, are involved in the politics of the respective countries. And let us examine one of the countries that they You know, they say when the Yankees sneeze, we catch cold. Yeah? America sneeze, Trinidad catch cold. And that we like to adapt and quote and mirror and take everything from America. Let us examine America. You have in the United States of America, the AFL-CIO, American Federation of Labor and Congress, industrial organization. They endorsed who? Biden last year. You have the North America Building Trades Union. You have International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the Teamsters. You have United Steel Workers Union. You have United Auto Workers Union. And those unions in the United States, those federations, representing thousands of workers, and in some cases millions of workers, individually, collectively, representing a huge chunk of the voting public, they give their support to whichever party, either the Democrat or the Republican, based on their policies or based on their projection of if they can support the interests that they represent, which is their members, the workers. So depending on where they feel their members will benefit, or where they believe their members are being attacked by one president as opposed to the other, they give their support, and it switched from president to president, from party to party. That is the United States of America. That's a fact. So anybody trying to make it feel that we did something wrong, or we doing something wrong by examining the policies of this party as opposed to the malgovernance we are getting from the PNM and Rowley, and trying to make the population feel that there is something wrong and it's only we who can switch. We will switch tomorrow and switch back the next day if we believe the interest that we are representing is not being served. And that is nothing new, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. The issue here is that we are sure right now that the Rowley and the PNM, they are not serving the interests of the people and the workers in this country. They're not. We are sure about that. They had one term, they faltered, blundered, failed. They had another term, well, they continue to falter, blunder, and fail. And with each day that passes, it is malgovernance with arrogance on the people who elect them to office. And that is a fact. So you have in the United Kingdom, Associated Society of Locomotive. You have a union called the CWU, the Communication Workers Union, not ours, but in the United Kingdom. You have Fire Brigade Union. You have National Union of Mine Workers. You have Transport Salaried Staff Association, Railway, London Underground, Travel, Haulage, and Shipping, still in the United Kingdom. That's unions. You have Union of Shop Distributive and Allied Workers. That's the United Kingdom. Trade unions pledging their support, involved in the politics. But they want to make you believe here in Trinidad and Tobago that it is wrong for the trade unions to get involved in the politics, simply because it's PNM in power. When it was 2015, you remember that? You remember, Rowley? When it was 2015, it wasn't wrong for the trade union because they was going to benefit. But now they're going to lose and be kicked out of office in shame. And we have to see to that. And this thing about coalition government and so on, and making you believe that is a bad thing. So you have in Israel, South Africa, Germany, Spain, Netherlands, Suriname, Curacao, coalition governments. So like if that is something wrong with that. So what they're trying to do is to set up the mind of the people, take more suffering, because you see the formula they're coming with, that wouldn't work. Try to scare the people, frighten the people that remember this and remember that. But we remember a lot of things about Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, the doctor of rocks. We remember a lot of things about him, and at the appropriate time we will be revealing those things one by one, and sometimes two by two as the numbers continue to increase. So The refinery, the Point of Pierre refinery is the patrimony of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Let's remember that. And let's also remember that the Oilfields Workers Trade Union represented from inception those who would have given their sweat, their tears, their blood to build that refinery and to operate it, and also the producing fields, indeed the industry in Trinidad and Tobago. And today is an appropriate time to salute that effort that would have been given by those people, our fathers and so on, who work tirelessly in that refinery. So here's what they did not respond to, and I challenge them, all the bourgeois politicians, all the bourgeois and armchair commentators and mobilizers. They mobilize from an armchair at no risk to themselves. Fool the people, project themselves as great repository of knowledge and so on, but have absolutely no idea, but a single idea to keep PNM in power. On the issue of crime, none of them have responded. None of them have challenged the information that we put out. None of them had said anything about, for 6 months in this year, 4,419 persons have been butchered, slaughtered in their homes and in the streets of Trinidad and Tobago. None of them said anything about that. None of them said anything about crime reaching double digit, migrating to Tobago for the first time. None of them said anything that under Rowley, under the Dr. Rock, Rowley, 4,419 people died since he came into office. Not one word about that. Well, the newspaper captured in a small headline, not a headline, in a small, the tiniest article. You have to take 2 or 3 binoculars to read that, about the incident where two teens were stabbed at the same family day, which Rowley spoke, which Rowley participated, which all the Silk people participated. At that same event, you had stabbing, teens stabbing each other.
Nothing on Labor Day.
On Labor Day, many more thousands and thousands of workers demanding justice for themselves and for Trinidad and Tobago marched the streets of Faizabad. Not one incident. And yet you had the Archbishop of Crime, sending all of the police, half of the police, into Faizabad to march with us. Well, I think she probably protesting because she sent all the police to march with us in Faizabad. Not one single incident. Those police should have been outside of Skinner's Park on Sunday, and to prevent the incident that took place. And look at what. It's the point that we continue to make, that they neglect the young people in this country. They neglect the type of energies that come from the young people to properly direct it in a productive space. They neglect all of that. They have failed. And as if in a display, a proud display of their failure, this man gets up and talk all of that foolishness and then tell me to sing my calypso. Well, I will sing my calypso night and day and in between, because my calypso captures the very essence of the failure of you, Dr. Keith Rowley. I will sing it. I will sing it in the east, sing it in the west, sing it in the north, and sing my calypso in the south. And especially I'll sing it in Central, throughout Trinidad and Tobago. It's sweet music, good composition, yes, that comes from the trade union movement and OWT in particular, as we find new ways to get our message across. Because calypso is one of the means of getting message out to the people, and we will use that medium as we see fit. You have to tell me to sing my calypso, my brother. I will sing my calypso. And there's more coming, There's more coming as we utilize the skill that we have, that we possess, untapped skill that we possess to be able to compose, to write, compose, and to sing and to even perform.
Yeah?
You are one kind of performance that failed the country. We come in different ways. Nothing was said about these from these bourgeois and armchair commentators about our GDP growth, that it fell from 3.9 in 2014 to 1.48% in 2024 under Rowley. No comment about that at all. I want them to challenge our figures, our information. Start by challenging our information. And all of those heads we have on the evening programs and PNM evening programs and Saturday morning programs and so on, two stupid dogs and so on, who knows nothing else. They are captured on the black and white Scotch whiskey bottle. Yeah? Two stupid dogs on that morning program on Saturday morning and in the evening program, defending the defenseless PNM policies. I want them, let's go into it. Challenge the numbers that I put out. Challenge it. That's the way to go. Don't go after personality. Challenge the numbers. So we fell. Our country credit rating fell from AAA in 2014 to BBB plus in 2023. This Trinidad and Tobago we're talking about under Rowley. And of course, our crude oil production fell precipitously, yes, by 33.4%. The commodity upon which we depend for foreign exchange fell because they failed by 33.4% from 81,262 in 2014 to 53,726 barrels of oil per day in 2023. That's under PNM. Under 2014, it wasn't PNM, but from that time to now, it has fallen by 33.4%. Challenge that. Tell me that I'm wrong. And let's have a constructive discussion around where I get my information and what you know to be the correct information. But they can't do that. So you will hear them talking all kinds of other things. Yes? To obfuscate and to skew the issue and to have other discussions other than the real thing that affects the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Heritage, that they talk about, boast about heritage, that heritage was the answer. Under heritage, oil production fell by 22.2% from 35,343 in 2014 under Petrotrin to 27,496 in 2023 under heritage. So under Rowley, oil production fell. And then you have gas production. Gas is running out in this country, you know. Gas is running out in this country. A decline by some 36.4% from 4,071 million standard cubic feet daily in 2014 to 2,587 million standard cubic feet in 2023. A decline of some 36.4%. Challenge that. Challenge where, ask me where I get my figures from. But no, they wouldn't do that. To hide their incompetence and their bungling and their foolishness, to hide that, they will talk about other things. So they fail with crime, they fail with the economy, they fail with the energy sector, they point you to some dragon deal that might never. The only dragon thing about that dragon deal is the dragon behavior of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. We expect very, very little to become of that, certainly that would not come on stream until long after they leave the office. But they want to fool you to try to get a chance to stay in the office. Long after they depart office in 2028, that project, gas will begin to flow in the pipes. But as of now, they want to fool you. Well, I wouldn't even talk about labor legislation because they are, what? An anti-worker, anti-labor government. So we don't expect them to bring any labor legislation at all. And of course, nothing Trinidad and Tobago. And I want the young people to listen. The young people who they will be coming to parade you in the sports day and the foolishness and so on. The young people who suffer in silence every day in this country, young single mothers who have to get up very early every day that God sent to go and do work in the public service, in all of the different ministries and so on. Our young people are now given month-to-month contract. Month-to-month contract, and you solving the problems one by one every day. Nothing was said about that. Our youths who qualify themselves, go to school, learn well, month-to-month contract. Those who are fortunate to get a job. And many hundreds of thousands of them cannot get a job. But those who get a job, they are exploited. And this leprechaun, they call him, this man who taxed blood out of stone, who want now NIS benefits for you to receive that after age 65. You have to wait an additional 5 years to receive that. Who instructs and design all kinds of policies, all kinds of punitive tax measures and so on, with penalties to get tax for the shortfall that they want to make up in the revenue. So you fail in economy, you fail with energy, you fail with crime, you fail across the board. But to what? To make up for your shortfall is property tax, increase electricity rate, increase water rates to come, all of those things. And listen, Trinidad and Tobago, don't forget, don't forget where they put, it's not even on the back burner, it's somewhere simmering right there on the stove. They are increasing salaries. Mark my word, as soon as they get into office, God forbid if that ever happens, they're coming back to increase their salaries and so on. These are the heartless people. So that is what we get, that is what the country get for supporting that nonsense and so on. But we will keep our eyes on the prize, and we will continue to inform the public what it means for another 5 years under Dr. Rowley. Yeah? More crime, more vagrancy, more unemployment, more attack on trade unions. And as I say that, where you ever hear in the world that it's okay for them to attack the trade unions, and it's okay for us to remain silent about that. It's okay for us in the OWTU or in the trade union movement because we are African and PNM is an African or not, colonialist or not, whosoever in charge of the governance of this country, this trade union, the OWTU, will attack you with full force. So they believe they're coming with a racial thing and the racial undertones. Don't support them people. If you support them people who are saying it, because what? I'm not afraid to say it. My union give me the liberty to say that. That's what it is. To try to turn your mind away from that. But the same people who support them for 52 years and counting are suffering right now and has not been elevated at all. And that those people in the PNM will be happy to see the same people cleaning windscreens, when it go up to a traffic light. They will be happy to see the same people begging on the streets. They will be happy to see the same people working in CPEP. They will be happy to see the same people scrambling for a living. They will be happy to see the same people involved in all kinds of crime and so on. That is what you will get from PNM. That is what you have always gotten, and it has accelerated under Keith Christopher Rowley. And what I'm saying this morning, challenge me on the statistics. Challenge me on my facts. Come with no stupid trying to skirt or to change the conversation at all. Challenge me on the information about this big scandal that is about to erupt in Trinidad and Tobago, where you have the Prime Minister stepping outside of the process, except if I miss something, stepping completely outside of the process and entertaining. I didn't know that Patriotic was called to the diplomatic center as part of the process. I didn't know that the other contenders was called to the diplomatic center as part of the process. But special treatment is given out, and mankind now is saying he didn't know, and he's excused for not knowing as the Prime Minister of this country. Well, finally, I just want to say, again, to end, but wait, we don't have the calypso. We should have been singing the calypso for Ivan, man. I want to hear it. Yeah? I can sing it a cappella for you, you know. But, yeah. But I don't want that to be the article. I don't want that to be the article. Another time, we will come here, and we'll go elsewhere. In fact, when we start to hit the road, you will hear us all over the place with additional verses, because there are no end of issues coming from this failed, corrupt PNM government. Yes? So that's it. So I want, media, I want you to find out if this is the same person. If this is the same person, if it's one and the same. This fella, yeah? Where's it? Right, this is the word here. It's a very serious word. It's a very serious word, eh? Bribery. If this fella and this fella, if they are the same people, same person, right? We have to find out that. Do your investigation. What is that? Right? When you find out if,
thank you.
Yeah, if that is one and the same. And if it's the same, if it's not the same, well then we could what? According to Stuart Young, we could let play out if it's not the same. But by God, for heaven's sake, Trinidad and Tobago, for goodness sake, for abiding with the law's sake, if that person and the person who's shaking the Prime Minister's hand in the diplomatic center, the People's Diplomatic Center, if that is one and the same, then we have a crisis, then we have a problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much. You have always been so kind and helpful and courteous.